Mayor Sanchez, talk a little bit about the decision tonight that was made by council. I understand you weren't in the room, you weren't involved in the decision, but you're the figurehead of the city. Talk a little bit about that decision.
Well, I do know that I guess the motion that passed was they decided to take Maya's Gardens off for consideration, which I'm fine with. You know, I'm not an idiot. I know what appearances look like. I know what's legally right and what is right in the public persona. So I'm okay with it. The issue I think I had with this whole situation is the issue that all of our council has been discussing, is the fact that we've tried every avenue. And what a lot of people don't even realize is that some of the avenues I chose not to pursue were going to affect some of the people that were in opposition to Maya's Gardens in a negative way,
Okay.
So, because really the only options we had at this stage in the game were maybe the county owns a building that we can house in, maybe the school district, maybe someone wants to volunteer their own personal property,
Sure.
And then there's a couple nonprofits in town. So those were all the avenues that we searched out. And I had a meeting with all entities that I just described, and all buildings were occupied. Now, it was proposed to me, do you want us to review contracts and see when we might be able to work something out? And I said, you know what? I'm also not a bully. I don't want to kick somebody out who's doing good in the community.
Sure.
So
you have to live here. It's a small community.
exactly,
Everyone knows everybody. I get
so that. We're like, something's is bound to come up.
One of the suggestions was the school district, and Alderperson Hurtado actually brought up a point I hadn't considered earlier, and there's safety issues potentially for having a public building for the entire city of San Elizario, and it would prevent some people from being able to petition their government. So I understand that was certainly part of it. How much of this is a function of the fact that there's kind of low participation from the community in terms of suggesting? When people are upset, they come out of the woodwork.
Sure.
And I think rightfully there was a critique about this particular location. But how much would the community have benefited, or the council itself would have benefited from more participation from the community on this?
I mean, we wouldn't be having this conversation if the community participated in the process. We had a lot of people crying foul, but we didn't have any of them offering suggestions. Most people are not in a position to offer a building on this level for
Sure.
a city hall. And mind you, when I had meetings, when I'm speaking with people, I said, we need a room. A room to hold files. We have a place to hold our meetings thanks to the school district, and they said we are able to utilize that space for as long as we need. We don't want to overstay our welcome, but at the same time, we didn't need something that's the size of Maya's Gardens. However, even just a room was really difficult to find, just an office space.
Sure. So you were really involved in in fighting the annexation and the incorporation. Mr. Johnson, who was a former opponent of yours for the mayoral position, said today something I thought was interesting, and I asked him about it afterwards in my interview with him. He said, we would have been better off in Socorro. And then he repeated it with another interview. Your thoughts on that?
I don't really think much of it. If that's how he really feels, he has the option to go to Socorro. I mean, we're doing the best we can. The naysayers aren't anything I ever focus on, and neither does my council. If a naysayer is starting to get to the council, it's my job, and I hope I do it well, to steer us back to focus on what truly are the issues at hand. Bickering and fighting is not something that's productive for anyone, whether a relationship or building a city. So I'm not offended by, he has a right to all the opinions that he spoke tonight. And quite honestly, they didn't stir me up one bit.
In a previous interview during the last couple of years, I think you alluded previously to there's going to be some bumps along the way. There's going to be some growing pains. There's going to be, so a learning curve at governing. I guess my question to you is, having been so involved in fighting what was at the time characterized as corruption in the city of Socorro, how does it make you feel to hear people throw words around like conflict of interest and that kind of stuff?
Well, in this case in particular, it didn't make me feel like they didn't have a valid point. Because I'm not, like I said, I'm not an idiot. I know what
The building has your name.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So that is why from the very beginning, I made it very clear that I'd like to see us pursue other options. I don't want to rule this out. Favoritism goes both ways.
Sure.
We could chastise him because he is related to me, or we could favor him because he's related. It goes both ways.
Sure.
So I wanted to do what was fair. And the only way we could get any kind of clearance and steering on that matter is through our attorney and our counsel and some city and county leaders here in El Paso, too. I presented it to them. I said, look, in confidence, we have this in front of us. What are your thoughts? And so we're not just relying on our attorneys. It's so easy to just say, our attorney said, but I wanted to make sure that I had a corral of recommendation of people that I respect, So I knew from the very beginning that I didn't want to be a part of that discussion and that decision. However, most people in the public, in our constituency, don't know the steps I took to make sure that we were keeping everything above board. And neither do I expect them to unless they are going to make the time to be here.
So 2 final questions. Number 1, how do you feel about tonight's decision or vote by the council to remove Maya's garden?
Again, you started with that question, and I'm okay with it.
Okay. And then my final question is, what message do you have to people that might be watching this that live in San Elizario and that were either critical or didn't know anything about this particular situation? What do you have to say to those folks?
Well, I actually, and it's true. One of the comments that Mr. Johnson made was, we're keeping our eye on you, and I hope they do. We're going to take the steps we can to make sure we're doing things properly. But we're young, we're new, we don't know the process. We may be making a mistake, even with counsel, not realizing it. So having people involved and critical of us is a good thing. Iron sharpens iron, So as long as the criticism is constructive and works toward a solution, if you're going to criticize just to keep another lobster down in the boiling pot of water, then that's ridiculous.
Mayor Sanchez, thank you for your time.
Sure.